Americans' views on transgender women in actual women's sports are changing as the national debate over fairness is growing. A new survey shows nearly 70% say trans athletes should only be able to compete against those of the same biological gender. That's up from 62% 2 years ago. And when it comes by political party, 93% of Republicans are against trans women in women's sports. And even Democrats are evenly divided, 47% in favor, 48% against. Former star NCAA college swimmer Riley Gaines has been outspoken after being forced to compete against a biological male, Leah Thomas.
Really what this is it's some sort of George Orwell dystopian novel that we're living in. They want us to say 2 + 2 is 5, and you're wrong if you call a spade a spade. This isn't something that's anti-trans. This isn't meant to be hateful. This is pro-woman. It's about fairness. End of discussion.
Clay Travis, founder of OutKick, welcome. Clay, are you surprised at all that the nation statistically now is seeing this a little bit more commensurately with where Republicans have been on the issue?
I'm not, Harris, and thanks for having me on. I think this is the result of Leah Thomas. When you look at these numbers, 69 to 26 is pretty hard to get anything in America today where it feels like we're evenly divided on all sorts of contentious issues. I don't think this is contentious. And I want to not only point out the Republican opposition, but that Democrats have now moved in favor of women against women's athletes as well, which means that sanity does win here. And Harris, I would say for sports fans, for people who actually know what competition is, they're like 90-10 or 95-5 in favor of a separation of sexes when it comes to competition. But realize the difference between the majority there of Democrats, which now oppose this. Harris, every single Democrat member of the House of Representatives and every single Democrat senator actually opposed what the majority of Democrats now support, which is women against women and men against men in athletics. It's actually the Democrat Party itself, which is wildly left-wing relative to where Americans are. And also, I would point out, Harris, ESPN itself. Remember, ESPN said Leah Thomas was a star of women's athletics.
Oh, I remember.
This man who decided to become a woman, they put that in and had an advertisement saying that he, when he became a she, was worthy of commendation. That is an insult to sports fans everywhere. And I think people like Riley Gaines, you, me, who are just voicing sanity here, are starting to have an impact in adjusting the numbers.
Yeah. I mean, our kids also
look, moms and dads.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Look, if you've been getting your little girl up for at 5 and 6 a.m. to go swim every day for a decade, and then suddenly there's a 6'3" guy who decides that he's a woman and wins championships, it's profoundly unfair. Moms, dads, grandmas, grandpas, aunts, and uncles, everybody sees this and says it's flat out wrong.
Well, and previously, if you're talking specifically about Leah Thomas, had been ranked far below 200, in some cases as low as 400 on the men's side for certain events. Look, there were women at ESPN who spoke out. Sam Ponder, Sage Steele, those women spoke out. They took some heat for that. But as you can see, statistically, the nation is creeping into, well, let's at least discuss it. And could you actually be right that biological males should compete, as you saw in the study there, as transgender against other transgender women?
Yeah. That's a possibility. I also think, just to point out, this is where inclusion begins to exclude people, right? When you get to the margins of society, what you're doing is replacing women, right? I can say, and you can say, Harris, I bet, hey, if you're an adult and you want to identify as a different sex, that's fine. That's a form of inclusion. But when you say, and I demand that I be able to compete against women, inclusion begins to exclude women. And I think that's where people are starting to recognize that there are limits to inclusion in this society.
Let's quickly get this in. It's happened again. Another student at a publicly funded college with an anti-Israeli rant during a commencement speech.
I was told 7 years ago, as a Palestinian refugee stepping foot for the first time in this country, that one day I will be standing on this stage, I would not have believed it. I gift my graduation to all Palestinians who have lost their lives and those who continue to lose their lives every day due to the oppressive apartheid state of Israel, killing and torturing Palestinians as we speak.
That speech at El Camino Community College in Torrance, California, echoes one delivered recently by a law graduate at the City University of New York. Here's a bit of that.
We did all of this in spite of the racism, in spite of the selective activism, the self-serving interests of CUNY Central, an institution that continues to fail us, that continues to train and cooperate with the fascist NYPD, the military, that continues to train IDF soldiers to carry out that same violence globally.
That graduate student from the community college tells the New York Post, "I heard snippets of her speech," meaning the one in New York that you just watched. "And I honestly feel inspired by her courage to speak up. We are only trying to speak up against what the oppressive government is doing." The reaction on Twitter was fierce. One person tweeted, "That speech was hijacked with false anti-Semitic rhetoric." Another said, "When did graduation commencement speeches turn into anti-Israel rants? We have reached out to the community college in California for comment. We're yet to hear back. We'll report when we do." Travis, Clay, your response.
I think anti-Semitism, unfortunately, has often become the province of the left wing in this country, and I think both of these speeches are emblematic of that trajectory. And the fact that the Democrat Party doesn't condemn opinions like these when you're calling Israel an apartheid state, it's a totally laughably and absurd accusation. I don't have a problem with her ability to say it, but I do think that the Democrat Party should speak out against accusations like these. And I think Republicans should continue to do what we're doing, standing with Israel. There's a reason why people who live in Israel overwhelmingly now support Republican policies in the United States as well. It's because they see what they're up against. And many, frankly, Jewish people in the United States are not paying as much attention to what's going on in Israel as maybe they should be.
We'll end with you, Clay Travis, in Focus today. Thank you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.